Welcome back to Radio Melee. We're joined by I'm the only non-god, I guess, on the show today because we're joined by Armada. What's up, dude? How you doing?
What's up? No, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Good to see you both.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a while. I heard you someone was telling me you finally got, or maybe it's, I don't know when this happened, but you finally got top 50? You're a top
It's like
50.
top 40 now, but I finally
You're top
broke
40?
the 49-minute barrier. So
Wow.
I guess that was the milestone.
When you say 40, so you're 48 something now?
Yeah, it's a 48.57.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen I've seen some of the I know a little bit about the 70 star meta, the 70 star route, so it's like the only one that I really know about.
Future runner.
Future runner, maybe. I mean a lot of
like
melee players.
Well.
Yeah.
PPMD.
I follow it so much.
Let's go.
So much.
That's
Yeah,
what
I love it. I love it, man. So yeah, I mean, I want you getting the record, man. I know we've talked. I've asked you before when you've rated me once, so I assume that's still your goal. And then after that, 120. Again, if you guys don't know, by the way, we're talking about Super Mario 64. This is what Armada mainly does now, and he's crushing it. Of course.
At least trying. We're getting there. Getting solid.
Tell me about Tell me about what you think you bring to the table in the world of Super Mario 64. Do you have is it like in Melee people have playstyles, people have things they're known for? Is it like that? Would you say it works like that somewhat with speedrunning?
A little
or is
bit,
it a little bit more
bit.
homogenous?
I mean, I would say partially I would say categories. Categories themselves pretty much push a certain playstyles. The shorter a category, the more brutal optimizations you need. The longer the category, more consistency will be in play as well. But the more categories gets pushed, the brutal optimization is like
always comes out.
But even like some of the top runners, you can see clear differences in terms of like going for more like slightly slower, more safe strats, and some people just go all out. So you still see a bit of differences between runners. So if you had like two, you could only see gameplay from two runners, top runners, I would super quickly be able to detect this is this runner, this is this runner.
Yeah, not so different from Melee in that regard.
Yeah. It's similar in that sense. It's cool.
Yeah, that's a pretty big, I think with Melee too, the better players get, the easier it becomes to pick them apart. And I'm sure it's like that with speedrunning.
Yeah, I feel so as well. I mean, I think the games and they have like a lot of similarities in many ways, and I think the reason people are drawn to these type of games as well is like the amazing movement, the endless skill ceiling. It's these type of games they've been around for so long, and people still keep pushing.
Super Mario 64 is older than Melee, obviously. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I have one more question for you, but before I ask that question, and I'm sure PP has a lot to talk about as well. Hey, all of y'all in the chat, I see a lot of you guys trickling in. Make sure you use !Radio Melee. You're gonna get to talk to Armada and us live on air. Just !Radio Melee. You click on that link that the chat gives you, and it's really, really easy to just submit a question and talk to us live on air. So that should be fun for you guys. Armada, I have one more question for you. What is the Armada of Smash? I keep saying Smash 64. I want to say Smash 64 because it's SM 64. Super Mario 64. Is there a technique? It's like the Armada shine of Super Mario 64. Is there a technique that you pride yourself on? I hit it very consistently.
The thing is, new discoveries are actually super rare in Mario 64
rare, right?
these days. A discovery actually happened recently by another player, so I mean, I still have a chance, but yeah, sadly, I haven't gotten any technique or strat upcalled after me. I guess the thing I'm the most known for, sadly, is the fact that I'm getting a lot of these so-called meme PBs that I do PB very frequently, but by the tiniest of margins. So I even heard some good runners call them like Armada PBs.
Armada PBs. Oh shit!
But I'm saying like I'm farming for content, right?
Don't they know? Don't they know that? Don't they know that it's all about?
Game?
Yeah. Don't they know that that's how progress is made? It's one step at a time.
Yeah.
That's how you got to do it. I respect the Armada PB.
Hey, look, you could PB by 1 second, half a second, but when people see green on the last split, the dollars roll in, man. I've seen it time and time again. So content, money team, look at him go. He's found his niche and he's running with it.
Yep, that's how we do it.
Awesome, man. And I mean, I'm honestly glad that you found something that, you're really enjoying and it's been rewarding and a lot of people have really liked watching and you're really to put, because you have such a laser focus on things. Obviously, you don't do what you did in Melee without that. And so I'm glad you're able to apply that. But I think a lot of people will want this question asked, and it's not about Mario 64 speedrunning. It's about the thing that happened a little before that. So please excuse me. I'm going to ask it again, Armada. But you were doing Melee for a long time before that. And you were incredibly successful at it, obviously. And some people, and you're still kind of around in a way. You still sometimes respond to things on YouTube, or you engage in some Melee discussion on Twitter or whatever. And so I think some people maybe and you're on a Melee show now, after all. So maybe some people are like, well, what does this mean? What does he really want? And so we're going to ask you again. I know you've had this question so many times, so we're going to ask you again. Do you have any interest in returning to competitive Melee? In what form would you be interested in? And I actually watched a part of a video you did where you answered some of this, and it was related to the community aspect of how people discussed you and how that impacted things. So I'd really love for you to draw on that as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So in terms of competitive Smash, like I mean, I still like to be a part of the scene due to like as you said, I did it for a very long time. A lot of my best friends are in some capacity either active in the scene as competitors or used to be. And I mean, going to these events, I met so many amazing people over the years, and even though I don't want to dedicate all my time and effort into improving at the game, I still like to be a part of like the community as a whole, right? Now, of course, with the pandemic, offline events haven't really been a thing. They are like just about to get back. A few events have happened, not too much yet. So, I mean, I would still like to be a part of the scene in that way. Maybe some commentary here and there. These type of things
When you
that we're
say
doing
that
right now.
way, just to make sure, just to clarify, do you mean just going and visiting events and maybe doing some commentary? 'Cause you said in that way. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
clear.
yeah, yeah. You interpreted it correctly. So like,
Okay.
yeah, go to events, maybe do some commentary, hang out, see people. Uh, so yeah, in that sort of fashion,
Mhm.
I would still like to keep it. But in terms of like entering tournaments in any capacity, no. The thing is, like, I love the game. Melee is still my favorite game of all time. I never see that changing. Uh, but it's a very big difference between loving a game and also like dedicate all your time, right?
Yeah.
I think one big aspect that some people truly maybe can't even fully relate to. And I mean, it's part of the price you might have to pay if you want to do something as serious as I did Melee and a lot of people do Melee now. But during my most active days, I spent roughly like 180 days out of country a year.
Mm.
Uh, and some people like they might be a little bit confused about that in a sense because it's like, let's say I was entering like, let's say 15, 20 tournaments in a year, right? But the thing is, like, since Europe, and no offense meant, because we do have some good players in Europe, but of course, the US have a lot better players on average. So you get like much better practice, right? So often when I did compete at like Evo, Genesis, Big House, you name it, it often involved staying out of country like 2 to 4 weeks at a time. So
Mhm.
even if you only had one or two events, you often had to stay like, maybe close up to a month in preparation because all those, like, let's say 6 to 8 weeks when I was home, that gave you worse practice conditions than most other top players.
There's also
So,
jet lag, right?
yeah, I mean, sort of, but like, personally, that was never really affecting me.
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
it
Oh
can do
wow.
to other people, but I was very quick to adjust. And even if I wasn't quick, since I was staying for so long, it would
Right.
not have turned into an issue for me anyway. I know, like, way back in like 2014, Leffen was working like part time or something like that and traveling. So in these type of cases, it clearly could impact, but that was not a factor for me at least. Uh, but yeah, it was more like, trying to like catch up for like worse practice time for like 6 to 8 weeks, and then like try to squeeze in like, 10-hour days for like weeks straight. Uh, so I mean, I more had like I was like all or nothing in that sense, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
if I competed, I wanted to do it and literally give it my all, or I don't want to
Right.
do it at all. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to do it half-assed.
Yeah, of course. I don't think Melee
Yeah,
is a game
yeah.
where you can really do that. I think it'll let you know that's gonna hurt. So
Yeah,
I,
it shows. It shows in matches. It shows in
yeah,
results when if you start
yeah,
doing it like with half your heart.
yeah.
right.
Uh,
I have
and
a
then the
question on that
community.
note, actually.
Wait, what are you
Um,
saying?
I have a question on that note, actually. How do you play much? Like, do you, like, even if you don't, competing notwithstanding, do you ever just play like for fun these
Yeah.
days, or?
It's not too often, but once in a while, I have streamed teams a few times on stream, singles like handful of times maybe, but
Hmm.
teams with Android. Sometimes off stream as well, just hanging out with people over Discord, especially when the pandemic was like more ongoing. Just playing different games like Smash or could be other games too, right? You sit on Discord, play, talk. Because many of these people lived, maybe in a different city and you didn't see them for a year plus. So it's just
Yeah,
a nice way of hanging out with friends during that time. So yeah, once in a while, but not too often. But hopefully with like local events happening again, like on a smaller scale here, maybe me and Andrew will just go to hang out and get some games in, but nothing more serious than that.
makes sense. Yeah, because I think even if I ever see you streaming teams, even or singles or anything, I'd love to come by and watch that too, just because I think even like you said, I think it's definitely possible to love the game even without necessarily wanting to compete. And yeah, I'd be super down to come by and watch you beat people up in teams again.
I hope you do.
You're
It's
gonna you're
actually
gonna have to let
funny.
me
Every
know.
time we have stream teams, Pew Pew
Hmm.
has always showed up in chat. I swear,
He
literally
finds
every
it.
time. It's not many times, but he always makes an appearance. It's like, I gotta show support for teams.
That's beautiful.
That's cool.
That's beautiful.
If I could ask one more thing, just to ask about it specifically, because again, I think this is something that at least on the community end they could control. And if you don't want to talk about this much, by all means, you can say so. But I remembered this is what I was referencing earlier. I remember there was a Q&A you did not too long ago, not too many months ago now, and you had mentioned that the way the community had talked about you, just general discussions, how a lot of things have been very harsh, and you didn't. And I mean, I'm not asking for any specific names or anything, and it could just be just anyone saying things, but that also seemed to be something that really pushed you away and made you feel like in a way, you almost, you know, if you did or you didn't play, you almost felt like you were in a tough spot. So that's something that at least the community could control. And so that's kind of why I wanted to highlight it and talk about how that might be impacting you, or if it still does, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say it's been. How do you phrase this? Like, I don't want to make it sound like it's everyone because it's very clearly not. Sometimes you have very vocal minority online on different social media, but it's true, as it was sort of implied. Like, it has been tougher times, and it's been annoying. And honestly, in some ways, it makes me want to be involved less in some ways, at least when it comes to like streaming the game, because I feel like it always turns like extremely toxic. I mean,
Mm.
I'm not going to try to say that I've acted and said all the best things at all times. I probably could have had like a more laid back, I don't give a fuck type of approach sometimes. Maybe no, that's not the best phrasing. But yeah, I mean, I think like sometimes it's been like I feel like people, and I know some people already like a lot of people know me and Mango have not really like been best buds for the past few years, right?
Right.
Uh, so it's been like many cases of like almost trying to poke and provoke me, or at least that's how it's been coming across from my point of view, right?
Right.
And I feel like I tried more of like a laid back approach at times, but eventually like getting provoked and almost it's almost like a response. It's like I want a response, but then it reflects bad on me as well, right?
Right. I understand.
So I feel like a lot of people like I feel like a lot of things have been said about me, what I've said, that I don't feel like is what I've actually said, or at the very least not tried to get across as my message, right? But then you have so many people that take those things for a fact, right? And way too many people go way too harsh online. You have seen people in the
Right, of
past, like
course.
Hbox is a very
Yeah.
notorious example, right?
Yes.
Where people have gone way too far in way too many cases. So I mean, I feel like as a community, those type of things are things we should. I'm not sure if tolerate is the right word, but things we probably should like try to prevent as much as we can.
Yeah.
And I do think
Mhm.
every player, streamer, content creator, competitor, whatever you want to call it, we all have like an impact
Responsibility?
on people, right?
Mhm.
So if like PPMD, for example, goes and like start shitting on this, and this person, then of course, like people that like you are going to be more inclined
That's
to
true.
move with
They're
that,
gonna
right?
echo that opinion.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's almost more about it's like that it's the trickle down effect. Like because even if someone says something in jest and there's some subtlety to it or there's some layers to it, the people that are mirroring what they're saying, they don't get any of that. So that for them it's very surface level. It's just all or nothing. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
they're gonna parrot it in such a way where you know they don't know you right on a personal level. You're just someone on the internet for them, and so they don't have a personal stake in it where they're trying to tackle it with subtlety or they're trying to actually respect your opinion. They're just kind of putting out what they see as the popular opinion or what have you, and so it becomes extra toxic.
yeah. It does. I 100% agree. And I mean, I think all of us probably can do a better job. Uh, I've seen other people do it. I've tried to do it at least sometimes in the past myself. Like, I mean, if we go back to the HBox, because I think HBox is a good example here due to all the horrible things that he sadly had to experience. But like,
Mhm.
I mean, I think sometimes it's also important to like separate the person from like the competitor or the character or whatever it is like some of the dislike may stem from, right?
Right.
I probably didn't always do it myself, but I feel like I tried often to be kind of clear. Like, all right, I really dislike this character, but it has nothing to do with Hungrybox, right?
Right.
But of
Right.
course, sometimes in the heat of the moment, probably we have all like slipped up in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's still a tough topic because like online, it's like so much about everyone being anonymous, right? And so many people like I don't feel like they realize how harsh things they can say, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, like I don't want to go too much into detail about it, but like
Yeah, of course.
I've still seen some people online that literally have said things like, they want me dead basically for stopping to play the game, right? And these type of comments are so absurd to me. It's so hard to like wrap my head around it. But I think like more of like the toxic culture, it brings more of these people forward. So
Right.
I think myself and everyone else, we all can do a better job trying to be uh, more friendly, I guess.
Right. And it just so I can put a bow on this, we don't have to drag this out any longer. So
Love
thank you
putting
first of all.
bows.
So thank you first of all for taking the time to answer that. I know that you probably knew what you were signing up for when you agreed to come on and deal with this, but thank you
Yeah,
for talking
true,
about
true.
that. But to put a bow on this, Armada's not interested, and what a lot of you guys are saying out there about him is making him feel awful, and I hope that was reflected in what he's doing there. So please be considerate. Please be kind. What you're saying is probably not helping the situation, whatever, no matter what you want. So just to be very clear about that. So thank you for that, and we can kind of move forward a little bit now, and we can kind of go for our community voice. We have a lot of people that are trying to get questions to Armada, so we won't hold them up for long. But let's get our question in, or our answers in from last time, 2 weeks ago. Our community voice. I do not remember our question, but we have some long answers. This is the first of two.
Yeah, we were talking about Nickelodeon All Star Brawl, which basically I was asking people, as I recall, I think the way I worded it was, what is all the people out there? What is your relationship with the game right now? I think when the game came out, obviously a lot of us on the streamer side of things were playing it. But I know a lot of my friends in the Melee community, some of them were trying it out. Some of them were really excited about it. Others of them were hesitant because of the $50 price tag. And I just kind of wanted to know like where people are at with the game. So Ants Johnson here, pretty long answer. NASB started off, what does CV stand for? Community voice. Nice. NASB started off looking like a novelty product with its degenerate gameplay and the devs' flippant approach to Valorant. Full sympathy for them with whatever external pressures put them in that spot. $50 was a steep price tag for a novelty game, but it was incredibly fun to watch as a canvas for personalities and community crossovers, as covered in your show.
Let's go.
Now, the new patch seems to promote a healthier, more sustainable for both in-game and metagame. What the difference is, but okay. I still feel it's a really volatile investment for $50 because not even its core mechanics are set in stone. It's true. I don't have the stomach or time to play the stocks much these days. Oh, I see. The stocks. That's clever. That's like a double entendre I feel like he was going for. However, I have faith that it'll end up in a good spot and that whoever does invest in it won't be let down. Wow, that's a comprehensive answer. It's funny. Maybe you don't feel this, Armada. Did you play much of the most recent patch? Are you still playing NASB a fair bit, or are you mostly back to Super Mario?
I haven't played too much of the new patch. I do think the new patch is clearly a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
I mean it was fun to mess around and like almost in like a Smash 64-esque type of way, like just brutally go over people. Because I mean, I think pre-patch it was like probably the most similar to Smash 64 of any Smash game, rather than Melee or Ultimate. But I do think the DI patch was for the best. I think like part of the reason people have played it less is partially because they have other games that are their main content, right? That doesn't mean these players doesn't necessarily like the game. I think the game is fun personally, but SM64 on my end is taking a lot of time in terms of like learning new stuff, improving, stay consistent. It's similar to Melee in that aspect too, that it's very time consuming. Not only to improve, but even if you just want to stay consistent at the level you are at. So SM64 is a little bit like Melee. If you don't play, you're actually like gonna get worse, right? It's not like you keep your skill. Like some of it will,
like
downgrade. And even if you can work some of that back, like maybe without too much time investment in some cases, it's still like something you need to keep up on a very consistent basis. And then I think the other issue is that the online can be improved quite a lot. And I think that's part of the reason why it's been played less. But yeah, I don't want to speak for any of the other, streamers, why they have played less. I guess it's, many different reasons for, each one of these people. But yeah, from it's mainly been a lot of SM64. I do think next time I get like a PB to the point where I want to go back and learn a lot of new things, that's when I'm going to be streaming a lot of other games too, because basically I feel more drained doing only practice because it's like more new things, which means you're going to fail more because it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And I also think it's not as fun stream content.
That's true.
So whenever I go back to like practice, I'll probably do like a little bit of practice on stream and then like a little bit maybe Nickelodeon or, some other games too. So I think for me, it's primarily going to be in these spots when I'm like in a phase of learning new things that Nickelodeon will happen. But it will still happen once in a while. But yeah, like SM64 is my main game, but I still think Nickelodeon is good. And for every person that enjoyed the game, just please play it and don't ask if the game is dead. I swear, every person that asked me in my chat if the game is dead, if they just tuned in and like played the game for themselves, it would be amazing.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true. It's funny. Everyone has their different reasons. For me, it's actually been. I was curious on your take of. I guess you haven't played too much the new patch. It's funny for me. The reason is I feel like I need to pick up a new character.
Wait, did you make the bleed as well?
Well, Toph is dead, right? Toph's not a character. So I was playing Powdered Toastman. But they buffed DI, which I think is really healthy for the top tiers. But I think it killed Powdered Toastman because now the Shine combos don't work. They can DI out. Yeah,
Oblina actually got pretty killed too. So
pretty killed.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I feel like some of the top characters in that game pre-patch, they are still top characters, right? But I think of like the S tiers, if you want to put it that way, pre-patch. I think Oblina was, besides maybe Mikey. I actually don't know about Mikey.
Mikey, I've heard.
But Oblina did fall off a lot. The thing is, the character has basically no range. So when you have, I think DI in Nickelodeon used to be like 10 degrees or something, up to 16 now, while melee DI is like 18 or something. So even though it's not quite as strong as melee DI, it's not too far off. And then when you have a character like Oblina with such small hitboxes, it's basically like you hold out and you can never do more than 2 hits.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because Powder Toast Man, same way. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to before I think I start playing again. Is because all the patches so far have been like general mechanics, game engine, adding dash dancing, adding DI, etc., etc. But they haven't really done too much character balancing yet. They haven't actually taken individual characters and like these are some buffs for this specific character. These are some nerfs for this specific character. They've changed some really large things, like they took out some infinites or they took out some glitches, but they haven't done like character buffs yet. So I'm really waiting for their first balance patch where they really like look at individual characters and actually try to balance the roster because I don't think they've really done that yet. And I'm really curious to see.
But the thing is, I also think they made the right call in that regard because like the DI change itself is so
Oh,
large,
yeah.
right?
I agree.
So I think they
take
pretty
care
much
of the big stuff first.
Approach. Wait, one more time?
Oh, like take care of the big stuff first. Get the stuff that affects the whole game first. Yeah, before you go and you tweak each individual character.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at our other answer so we can see what all the people out there are thinking. I can.
Oh yeah, because we do have two. We do have two.
So this person, what is this? Is this? I don't know. They're a bunch of letters.
Are you trying to read their name?
Yeah, their name is impossible.
Yinder Bixie.
Yeah, sure. I can take the read on this one if you want, Tove.
Yeah, get it.
All right. My perspective as both a spectator and player is that Nickelodeon All-Stars is kind of limp. The thwip rhythm of wet noodle hitboxes, both characters just spamming light and air dashing at each other, combos being entirely one note due to lack of hit stun and a lack of animation variety. Everything just feels the same, and feeling is kind of meh. The most interesting combos are the ones that can't do this, Reptar, Toph, Korra.
Agreed. Those characters are sick.
They are pretty cool, but they seem like they are designed in mimicry of Smash characters that use larger hit stun windows to create off-rhythm combos, and they don't get this advantage. The hit stun is just equalized and super short, so they just can't combo. Anecdotally, watching people win hard in this game sucks. It doesn't feel like there's any degree of outplay or emergent gameplay. It feels like a light and air coin toss into conversion to 100% or triple light dare edgeguard, hopeful for patches, but also somewhat apprehensive about the lack of design cohesion on release. So I think between
Triple Edge, that's the Armada. it's everyone at this point, but day one it was the Armada. Yeah, day one was the Armada, and I guess maybe the Void.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't know. My character can't do that. My character can only do 2.
And stuff.
You didn't have the privilege like we did.
That's true. I played Aang for 5 minutes. I did some of those combos, then I stopped playing Aang. Maybe I should go back.
I mean, Aang's Nair is still actually like a pretty good combo.
Oh, it's amazing. No, it's amazing.
Because his range is just so large that even with good DI, you can still follow up very nicely.
And it's the platform on Jellyfish Fields is his best friend. Because it's like the perfect, it's like they designed that platform. They're like, all right, let's take the exact length of Aang's Nair and make it just right there. Oh man, it feels so good to hit. Yeah, I totally get that. I actually want them to do more. I want them to take dude, it's funny because this is something that is I think very ubiquitous across a lot of games right now because okay, you take Melty Blood, for example. The new fighting game, or the new version of Melty Blood just came out, Type Lumina. And that's actually one thing people are saying about that one is that compared to the previous version, Actress Again, that came out many years ago, where there are a lot of different player or character styles, a lot of variety among characters, there's the different moons or what have you. The new one, it feels like a lot of the characters are it's a very balanced game, but that's because all the characters kind of play sort of similar. And so I totally get this because, yeah, I got that with Nick All-Star as well, where I felt like a lot of the strong characters are quite similar, and I would like to see them for their next patch. Like, I want to see them start getting a little crazy. I want to see characters that play very differently that can succeed. The thing that I thought that was the coolest, did you happen to watch, Armada, did you happen to watch the Melee versus Ultimate, the crew battle that Ludwig did? The 10v10?
I actually didn't. I went to Stockholm. A friend turned 30.
Oh, you did?
So he
cool.
had a birthday party. So I actually ended up missing it. But I saw afterwards like how the players performed in terms of like stock count. But I actually didn't end up seeing.
Yeah, Void went crazy.
Yeah, he went crazy. I think the bus went crazy, and then
yes.
like Flop.
And that was what I was going to bring up. Was I really liked the way DeBuzz played, because everyone was saying DeBuzz was maybe not going to be good because people thought Invader Zim wasn't good. People thought DeBuzz hadn't practiced the game that much, but he actually did really well. And he was doing some really cool setups where like he would actually do like ledge trapping with all of the different like things that he could place. He was playing Zim kind of like Rosalina, but like Rosalina with a little bit of Olimar, which kind of makes sense because it's DeBuzz. Like he would like send the little guy for the Gur forward, and then he would like put the thing in the air that would cover the jump or whatever. And I was like, oh, this is so different from how everyone else is playing, but this is actually really cool. And I even saw in the melee chat, like somebody in the melee chat of the players was even saying like that was actually kind of cool, not gonna lie. So that was actually really sick. And if you were curious, or if you want to go back and if you get the chance, you should check out DeBuzz's games from that crew battle, because that was like I had a glimmer of like there could be more of this, because this is totally different than how all the other players are winning, and it's actually really cool to see because most of the other players that are playing top tiers, they play very similarly.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is also, I feel like the concept of having characters more similar and mechanics less brutal, it basically makes games more balanced overall, right?
Yes.
Like if you have characters being more similar in terms of playstyle and like hitboxes and combo routes, it's going to be more easy to get characters on like an even-ish playing field, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when you add like so many different dynamics and like every character works vastly different, and then you also take into account people pushing these characters for a long time, hopefully, right? It's going to be things even the developers had no way of, seeing like this would happen, right? Like, I know Melee wasn't intended to be this, crazy competitive game, but even if it was, no one that made that product would have known everything that was about to come, right? So if you already have like a design philosophy that everything is going to be like more unique in a sense, it's going to be even harder to get it to be like balanced. You have recoveries working so different. It's like, oh yeah, this recovery seems to be quite a bit better. This one seems to be a bit worse. Sometimes stuff like that can change depending on skill level. And then it's also like, how does this like blend in with everything this character have to offer overall? Something like edge hogging in Melee, some people say that, oh, it's bad because these type of characters can never be good, but it's more like they are not necessarily bad because their recoveries are lacking. It's like their overall kit, right? Like not every character in Melee has like a puff recovery, right? You have a character like Mewtwo that arguably has like one of the absolutely best recoveries in Melee, but he's still bad just because his overall kit isn't good enough. But you have a lot of people that believe that, oh, like characters like Bowser, they have to be bad because their recovery is like very bad. But that's not necessarily true.
I must not see this viewpoint as much because this probably comes from Ultimate players probably more, right? Because things are more homogenized, I think, in Ultimate.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I feel like this is just like a very common type of like line of thinking. If you see like social medias in general, it may be Ultimate players. It may be like overall like worse like players in general. Not trying to be mean, but
not trying to be mean.
Yeah, I think
there's
something, so many dynamics.
Yeah, there's something interesting.
Kevin. You know it's true. You know it's true.
He said not to be mean, and we're just gonna
not to be mean.
Go past that.
Okay. I don't think that was mean. I think that was very reasonable. I think most people are worse at video games than Armada, myself included. I think there's actually something interesting to dig into here before we get our first caller on, which is that people. One opinion, speaking to people who just might not know much, or they don't know as much about specifically Melee maybe. Then you see them in Twitch chat or YouTube comments all the time. They're like, why do people still play this game? It's just like there's not that many characters. There's there's not that much character variety. The top tiers are so much better than the bottom tiers. But I think you raise a very good point, Armada, which is that I think because Melee has a little bit of imbalance with regards to character strengths. Okay, yes, the tier list is more lopsided. There's some pretty bad bottom tiers and some really good top tiers. But also on the flip side, there's a lot of variety between the characters. And so I would almost rather take a game with Melee, where half the cast is unviable. But among the characters that are viable, they're all pretty different. I mean, even the clones like Fox and Falco, those are clone characters, but they play really different. Like they play really, I would say in terms of getting comboed, maybe they're similar, but other than that, they're not that similar at all. So
Yeah, and I mean, I would also say like not only the fact that like sure you have like some characters in melee or actually quite a lot of characters in melee that are not viable, but not only I mean I would say that yes the characters play very differently like Fox to Marth, Marth to like Sheik and so on,
yeah.
but since melee have so much things going for it, each one of these characters can be played in so many different ways as well. I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable in like any other big esport, but at least based on my limited knowledge, it seems like in a lot of other games, characters are played more similar between good players playing X character, while in Melee you have more ways of like expressing yourself and playing a character. You can have a Fox playing like one way, like from one player, and then like it doesn't even really look that similar if a different Fox play or Falco or Marv or whatever character we would end up talking about, right? And then one final point there I want to say as well. The thing like the reason half the cast in Melee is so bad. I mean, I don't even think it's like how do you say it's not entirely necessarily because of how the game works. You could make a game like Melee, similar to Melee, where every character is roughly equally as good. I just think it would be so much harder due to like all the tremendous differences.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And at the same time, I think it makes it fun to watch.
Yeah.
You know, in spite of the fact that on the surface level it looks like a bunch of Fox only Final Destination or whatever. But you know,
Yeah. I mean that's the meme, right?
that's the meme. That's the meme. All right, I think it's about time to get our first caller on. You know, we have some pretty interesting questions this time around. So let's talk to some of the guests. We got Yungyosi calling in. What's up, Yungyosi? Where are you calling in from?
Hey, I'm calling from a little town in Washington called Grandview. Um,
Nice. Washington
yeah,
State?
yeah, Washington State.
Oh, shout out
Um,
PNW.
yeah, wish it was Seattle, but it's a couple hours away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I wanted to ask. In a previous episode, PP mentioned that in regards to like player skill and achievements, that he believes that everyone will hit an inevitable point of satisfaction, whether they're
Oh
conscious
boy,
of it
you
or
brought this
not.
up today, huh? Oh,
I
whoops.
I was I've been thinking about it ever since you said it because I feel like it kind of went under the radar. You like said it and I felt like it seemed important to you, but then you didn't
Yeah.
really talk about it too much. But it stuck with me and I'm curious to hear more. I want to know what you guys think about this inevitability, whether it's true, how to know when you've become satisfied, how does it affect your goals moving forward? Is this point something that you can change? And also tangentially, do you guys believe that people's goals as melee players are often informed by this hypothetical point of satisfaction, or is this something that most players are unconscious of and leading to like unreasonable or unrealistic goals?
Well, he was asking about my thing. I can clarify some before either of you guys want to take it away, if that's all right.
Do clarify. Although
Okay.
I think I can guess what this is mostly about.
Yeah, I won't go as long that and just so I can make sure this is clear. But what I was talking about, I still think this is true. But I think everyone has a point that they are okay with, whether that's best in your house, best in your city, best in your state, or just PR'd or number one in the world for several years, and yeah, like certain people on the show right now. But like whatever, right? Whatever that takes to get there, people get there, and then you have to figure out what you want to do next, and that's a tough choice. And I think when you start, you don't think about this, and everyone's got a level like that, and you might have a level like that with melee, you might have something like that with money, you might have that with a friendship, a relationship, like it could be with all sorts of things. It's just melee is kind of the gateway to understand a lot of these things, and this is so how I bring it up. And but after that point, I think because this isn't really something that's talked about, people don't often navigate the space super well. So they're like, well, why am I not doing what I was doing before or whatever? And so this can really be challenging and confusing. And then you start being frustrated. I mean, one of the experiences for me was, just to bring it up for myself and make it personal. After Pound 5, I started playing a lot more. It took me a long time to figure out how to stop playing to protect a spot and be so worried about that, as opposed to still trying to grind and improve and try to, beat who I was yesterday or whatever, which I'd never really tried to do. I'd always been for approval of others on a certain level, and there was a certain level where I didn't have enough of that, and then when I finally got it, I was like, well, now what? And then I was satisfied, and so I had to figure that out, and I think this is something that everyone deals with to varying degrees, and so I hope that clarifies kind of what that is, and I do think everyone has a point like that, but whether you're conscious of it or not, how to evaluate that, I think, is important. So that's my take, and you guys can do with that as you will.
You want to go first, Rove?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that this it's we talked a little bit about this on one of the previous weeks. I remember, maybe it was a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I mean, it's true that, man, I've thought about this a lot. It's true that, yeah, I mean, I think that this is the case. I think that people do tend to get right, like, as you work towards something, you kind of gravitate towards a and you see it with competitors, but you also see it with people in other walks of life, right? And for me, this ties into a question that I used to get a lot, which was like, what do you think about how good can a commentator be if you're commentating Melee? Like, does that mean that you can't be a good player anymore? And I think that, like, the answer there is that no, it doesn't necessarily mean, like, you can definitely be a good player and you can keep getting better. But I think for a lot of people, and I think this was me for many, many years, you go to tournaments and you derive like a sense of satisfaction or a sense of like for me, I would go to these major tournaments and I knew that at the end of the day, I was really there to commentate, and it was very hard to really have the drive to beat people, even if I really wanted it consciously. I think subconsciously it was a lot more difficult when I knew that, okay, even if I make it into the top 8 somehow, well, I'm going to commentate the top 8 anyway, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that it is to a certain degree inevitable. It will happen, but I don't know. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's a problem at all. I think it's totally fine.
There are ways past that. I mean,
there are ways past it.
I've moved past it, and everyone's made their choice. Like, I hired, and then he decided he wanted to do it again, and he did it again, and he did it for longer, right? So it's totally achievable and this can be, you can see this on various scales, not just at the highest level. I didn't want to make it sound like you're there and then you're done forever. Like, that's not what happens. It can happen even for a while or forever, but it depends.
I have a theory on. Go ahead, Armada.
I think a lot of it is also like, I mean, I think these like points, as you described about Pound 5, for example, I had similar points where like during my career, you got like to a certain goal, and then it was like, yeah, then what now, right?
Right.
I think part of the challenge is trying to find new goals along the way, right? And some days will be easier, some days will be tougher. So I do think smaller goals, right, is very important. Trying to like push that as long as possible. But I mean, yeah, I guess theoretically, like, let's say someone was like number 1 at Melee or anything for like 20 years straight, no one could ever challenge you. Of course, like, I mean, I'm not sure if it's like humanly possible to be as like driven if no one literally can challenge you. And even before someone like is taking this way out of context, I'm not in any capacity trying to say that was me. This is absurd, hypothetical, right? But let's say someone like in any sport was like, you literally couldn't beat them for 20 years. I think, I'm not sure if any human would actually like have the same drive and passion at that point, right? I think the fact of like being challenged is part of it, and then I think some people might be like reaching that type of satisfaction earlier than others. I don't think everyone have like the same threshold, right? I mean, you have some like professional athletes like Jagger, for example. Like he's almost like 50 now and still playing professional hockey, even though it's not at the same level, right? Just because he
Got
loves
Tom
the game.
Brady. Love Tom Brady.
Yeah, or
Let's
like
go,
Tom
Tom Brady.
Brady.
Gotta respect him. You don't have to love him, but you gotta respect him.
Jeez
Yeah.
Louise, Toph.
So, I mean, there are some of these cases as well, right? But hypothetically, if Brady won the Super Bowl like every single year since he started, would he have continued for as long? Maybe, maybe not. It's also like you can't really prove this one way or another unless someone actually does it for like 50 years and never lose a single time, I guess. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. I do think side goals or smaller goals along the way is more important as well. But I mean, as long as you're also challenged, it's like a high price to pay to stay up there, right? And it can be other things in life, other priorities taking over. Yeah, I don't know. It's a cool topic, but I mean, I think the challenge itself, at least 99.99% of the people will go through.
Yeah. If I had to say anything simple, because again, not everyone is going to be, number one melee player or number one in their firm or whatever it is. If you get somewhere, I mean, I think this is a general thing to say too, but if you get somewhere and you start feeling a satisfaction, you want a simple rule. I think that rule is raise your standards, whatever those are, and you just go from there. Set something that inspired you, like it inspired you to get to where you were, and so you feel that feeling again. Because you're going to follow that feeling, and whatever form it takes, it might have to be very different. You might have to use very different thinking or whatever, but that's where you want to go from that point. And when you are someone that did what Armada did, for example, and you're on top for a really long time, you have to. I can only imagine for the bit I had to do it, but for Armada, you would had to continue to find other avenues or other ways to be inspired and other sorts of goals, win by more or whatever it can be. It can be something different. So I just, it's an important question. I think this applies to everyone, not just people who succeed at the highest level in something. And yeah, so it's a great question to come on with today. But I do think we have handled that pretty well, unless there's anything else any of you guys want to add.
I think it sums it up pretty well.
Cool. Well, Yungyosi, thank you so much for calling in. Is there any shout outs you got for us today on your way out?
Yeah, shout outs to my girlfriend Maddie. Shout outs to my boys and girls, young Nero, young Regu, young Henny, young Mist. Shout outs to 64 scene, shout outs Kiro, shout outs Strand Daddy, and shout outs to Crush.
Heck yeah.
Rush.
Yeah, shout outs to Crush. Just keep them in your mind. Never
I
forget.
do from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Take care, gamer. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, have a good one.
What a poignant question, if I may.
It was poignant.
We got another caller on deck. Let's bring him in. Banana Foster, what's up? Where are you calling in from?
Hi, I'm calling in from Ohio, northeastern Ohio.
Shout out to
Cool.
Neo. Love me, PGH Carroll and the gang. Spinda. Spinda's Neo, right? Yeah.
No idea.
Okay.
I'm not up to date with my local scene.
Got it.
But you are up to date with this question you want to ask us, right?
Yes, yeah. So, with Smash World Tour, I'm so excited that Armada is here for this question, by the way. With Smash World Tour, we saw strong performances by 5 very different Peaches. Triff, Kalamazoo, Azusa, Laud, and Polish. So, how can we think about different styles of Peach? For instance, the speed and constant hitboxes of Mog or Blue's Clues versus the more defensive movement and reactive moves of Kalamazoo or Laud, as well as just like diverse uses of turnips. Now that we're a few years past just comparing everyone to you, Armada, and saying like, well, they do it a lot like he does.
That definitely was the thing, was that people would just talk about Peach players in terms of Armada. They were just like, okay, this guy can do 70%. he's like a 70% of an Armada. This guy's only like a 45% of an Armada. So the 70% guy's better, you know.
Wait, so was the question like, how do we compare the different styles? I think the question was lost on me a little bit. Maybe, I don't know if you guys got all of it. If you did, that's fine. Or mainly if Armada did. This is, I think, the Armada question. But if Banana, you could clarify a little bit, that might be good. But you are muted, so that would be tough.
I think Banana was just asking what we think of the different styles of Peach gameplay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Banana Foster, now that you're back.
Sorry, I lost like 5 seconds. What was just said?
Oh, we just wanted you to clarify what the actual question was. Was it how do we compare the styles of Peach or what?
So I just sort of wanted to see, I feel like we have ways of speaking about a lot of other characters that are more advanced, but Peach hasn't gotten a lot of attention for a while. So I was hoping that we could just sort of think about maybe putting together a language for how different Peaches operate, like how Polish usually throws his turnips straight down and doesn't necessarily pull them in all matchups between stocks, versus Triff, who almost always seem to have a turnip in hand and use them in very different ways. So just like thinking about and defining at least a couple of the top new Peaches. I made this question before Polish had his crazy run, by the way. And just like, cool. What are they doing? How can we be a little bit more sophisticated than just 70% Armada?
Gotcha. And
I mean, I think part of it comes down to part of this comes down to the fact that, as we talked about earlier, characters in Melee can be played very differently, right? I think the reason why some characters may not be talked about that way as much is that every person that talks about Melee have their own strengths and weaknesses, right? So a person like me that played Peach and Fox probably would know extra much about Peach and Fox. And let's say PPMD, much more about Falco, Marth, Toph about Fox. Of course, we know things about other characters, right? On top of our mains, but especially these characters, right? And I guess the biggest reason is that a lot of commentators are not Peach players in any capacity. So the easiest metaphor they could use was comparing it to me, in my case, Pikachu to Axe, Yoshi to Amsa. I don't think it's people necessarily trying to be like disrespectful or think the character can only be played one way. I think in some cases it might not just be the easiest. Like you can see that with Puff, Ices. Ices is a good example. Ices is a good example. Sometimes you even have commentators that are really good, but they can't always pinpoint exactly all the
what they're going
crucial
for
details, right? So I will be honest, I haven't actually watched too much Melee lately. So some of these Peach players I have not seen much from. Of course, I've seen a lot from Triff historically. I played against him a lot too. So I mean, I wouldn't be able to give like an exact list on all these things. Of course, if I was watching or commentating, I would be able to pinpoint it more. But I guess the overall advice I could give to everyone that does commentary for events is trying extra hard with characters. They are not playing as or against as often, because every commentator will have some characters they're weaker on naturally. Like even if you're the best commentator in the world, you will be worse commentating some character. That's just how it is, and I think that's the issue this boils down to, if you ask me.
I thought the set that was at NA East Smash World Tour was where they had the Polish versus Laud Peach and winners. That was a really good. Did you actually watch that match, Banana Foster? Because
yeah, that was amazing. Just seeing like the different styles of a real intense speed versus Laud picking his spots a lot more. It was so interesting seeing that play out in a Ditto.
Also, the verticality. I thought that the thing that me and Walt were remarking on that kept coming true over and over and over was how much more, especially in the Ditto, Laud wanted to be on the ground and Polish wanted to be in the air. Like 9 times out of 10, the neutral interaction was Polish in the air, trying to mix it up with the float and the platform waveland or float landing, etc. and Laud being on the ground, pulling turnips. Obviously, Laud got like several stitch faces over the course of the set. I don't think Polish pulled any, because Polish just wasn't pulling nearly as many turnips. And a lot of it was Polish, like, basically trying to approach from the air and Laud trying to anti-air or trying to space around him on the ground. And that was like literally every single game that kept happening. Polish would immediately go to the platforms or go into the air, and Laud would always stay on the ground, try to get a turnip out. And it was like really, really crystal clear. And I thought it was cool how Walt in particular did a really good job kind of establishing that narrative at the very start of the set, talking about how Laud is a very grounded Peach and Polish is very tricky with his platform movement, his float movement. And almost all of the set, if you took any individual snapshot of any moment, if it wasn't like, if it was neutral game, Polish would be in the air and Laud would be on the ground, like every single time. And so, yeah, I think I do wonder, Armada, if from, because people do talk about the Peach players these days as if they're more varied and they have more, like, they play differently from each other. Whereas the way people used to talk about Peach was that they are all trying to emulate you. Do you feel like that was even true back then? Like, Armada, did you feel like, even back when you were active, did you feel like most Peach players were trying to play like you? Or did you feel like, do you think there's any merit to that? Or do you think, like, even back then, there were some Peaches that were very good that played really different from you?
I mean, honestly, I never truly agreed with that narrative. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the Peach players, watched my VODs trying to, find things they could improve on, just like people do with other characters as well, right? But I don't think it was like, oh, every Peach player is like a worse version of my Peach, right? I think some Peaches played really different from me. Not only in, like, for example, like one matchup, but like overall. I think that also stemmed from the fact that it was just like an easier metaphor to use. I mean, some Peach players overall, I would say, have been a little bit more similar. But I mean, for example, like MacD way back, or maybe not way back, but his Peach was very different from mine, for example.
Yeah.
But you could still often hear these type of like, oh, like worse Armada or 70% as you talked about. So yeah, I don't think that narrative was ever really true. I think at most it was like some Peach players had a similar style, some did not. But most of them probably looked for inspiration and ways to improve, right? But that is true for any character. Like, if you're a good Fox player, you have probably watched Leffen's Fox, even if you play nothing like Leffen. Like, I don't feel like... Yeah, it's like... I mean, I think, like, with Falcon, for example, I think that's a very good one. I think Nun, Wizzy, and S2J play super differently. But you can see, especially like, in the past few years, that it's like they all have been taking pieces from each other, right? They still have their very different playstyles, but they are like, still seeing that, oh, like, Nun is using his crouch really good in these type of scenarios. I'll pick up on that, right? You have seen Nun like, maybe once in a while I actually should react like Wizzy, right? So, I mean, you see even these type of players, even though they have like super different play styles, they still look for ways to improve, right? And of course, looking at like the best player of a character or some of the best players of a character, that's a good way of like getting better too, right? Because no human has all the answers to one of the characters in Melee, unless you maybe play Bowser and you realize that this isn't worth it. But I guess most of humanity can get to that conclusion pretty fast.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Something I've said on Radio Melee before. I think that the way not even casuals, but I think a lot of people in the community talk about the potential of Melee characters or even the existing scope of Melee characters, they tend to draw comparisons to the existing top players of the character. Remember, we were talking about this in the context of Wizzy PP and how people think that Falcon can realistically reaction tech chase. Like, when people talk about Falcon, I just noticed that people talk about it as if reaction tech chasing should be accounted for, whereas nobody seems to talk about Sheik this way, for example, because the top Sheik player or the top Sheik players don't reaction tech chase that much, except maybe for face roll. And I think that for Peach, I think Peach players have always, with the exception of certain people like maybe Kalamazoo, I think Kalamazoo has always basically tried to only do what Armada does. But at least having
Remember
spoken
the
to him.
notepad.
I remember the
Respect,
notepad. I remember
respect.
talking to him. I remember every time I'd tell him some idea, I'd be like, hey, maybe have you considered doing this here? And he's like, Armada doesn't do that, so I'm not going to do that there. And I was like, okay. Look, take it or leave it, dude. I'm just saying. But anyway, I think for a long time, I actually don't think the Peach players necessarily all played like you, but this is to say that I think if you were active today, I think people would still be drawing comparisons to you with all the Peaches.
Or at the very least,
think they would
probably
literally
be
still be doing
bigger than
Yeah,
today,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy that people are exploring what I would actually want to call the fact that they are playing differently, and I think that deserves to be highlighted. All these players have their own strengths and weaknesses. So, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good thing that it's one step closer to more deserved recognition, if you put it that way.
It's a slight follow up on that exact point.
Yeah, go ahead.
So strengths and weaknesses, to get past that point of sort of simplistic analysis of Peach's Peach players, do you see strengths and weaknesses for various styles, like for grounded or more aerial based Peaches in particular matchups, like versus other floaties or versus other spacies? Just like, is there any room in this Radio Melee show to analyze a little bit of what different Peaches are good at or strong at, to move past the 70% point?
Banana Foster, do you main Peach?
I used to. Now I main Puff. I'm very lame.
Interesting. I was not expecting that answer. But is this an extension of your original question in that you want there to be a description of how different Peaches can play, or do you want to just talk about what's effective with Peach?
I think probably the first more than the second.
Because that's what I was going to ask when you also unmuted. But yeah, I'd really love to hear this from you, Armada. Maybe we can do it this way. If you want to talk about the way you wanted to play Peach and what you felt you were strong at, or maybe not as strong at, and how you might compare that to Triff or any other Peach that you're aware of, so that people might have more of a groundwork, more of an understanding to evaluate Peaches. I think this is what this person was really after when they asked their question.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you, PP.
You're welcome. Got your back.
I mean, I think for me, in terms of like playstyle, like, I mean, this is similar to other characters too, but like it was entirely based on what character you were playing against, right? Against a character like Falco, you're probably going to stay a bit more airborne, since laser puts you in shield, which is a position you don't want to be at, right? But even there, you can see some Peach players that have like a much more grounded approach to the matchup. Maybe, you know, more power shields, for example. So I mean, I think it comes down to like how you value the risk versus reward in different type of scenarios. I do think Triff is probably one of the more similar, if maybe not the most similar Peach to me. And I wish I could give you a bet. If I knew this question was going to come up, I was going to look at these Peach players and give you a better list.
Okay.
But I feel like I wouldn't give the question justice pretending that I have kept up with all these Peaches.
Sure.
So as boring as that answer is, I don't want to give a list that I wouldn't fully believe in myself.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, but if I had watched, I would happily tell all the differences. But since I haven't, like, yeah, I can't really give you the answer you're looking for. But hopefully I can in the future, since I know that some people want to know it now.
We're looking forward to the tweet. We're looking forward to it. I I could give a partial answer, but I am also not someone who has been ranked #1 with Peach for a bunch of years. So I feel like it will not have the same oomph. So I'm not going to attempt it because that would be embarrassing. But Banana, I think you can just look forward to Armada's tweet. That may just be the greatest way to solve this, and I think it's still good you put it forward.
Yeah, I will watch my subscription on YouTube very carefully.
Yeah, or YouTube, wherever he puts it, I suppose.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you for calling in, Banana Foster. Any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, sure. Shoutouts to I don't remember his name, the Ohio player who came in last week who mentioned the Melee locals at Kent, because I went up there and that was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And also shoutouts to all of the longtime Melee viewers who aren't like engaged in their local scenes or aren't going to tournaments and mostly are just watching from the outside in, maybe getting on Slippy or something. It's great. You should come to your locals, and if you don't, that's fine too. Just keep hanging out.
For sure. All right, well, take care. Have a good one, gamer.
Thanks, you too.
Love getting Peach questions for Armada. We love that.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun watching, in particular, Polish's run.
Yeah.
This past weekend, and yeah, I hadn't watched that much Polish before. So and he was really impressive, and he was really fun to watch. Not, I mean, definitely helped that every single set he played was, game 5 to the limit.
I saw the bracket and pull sheet. It was like game 5 all over.
Game 5, game 5, game 5, game 5, and they're all last stock, like all the way to winners finals. But
yeah, I think we'd all enjoy to hear what you'd have to say about Polish and maybe also Lot. I think people would be really curious to hear about all that, Armada. So if you ever end up getting the time, I'd be interested in it too. So, no pressure. I know you didn't come on to get more content commitments, but
Yeah, I mean, if there's a lot of interest, then I mean, it sounds rewarding in a sense too, right? Because that's part of what we do, right? Content. So,
Yes,
I mean, it's a good idea if enough people want to see it happen, then I would be encouraged.
You know what to do. Tweet at Armada, ask him for some Peach comparison content. Let him know the demand is real. This is something you could do, community.
Definitely.
All right, let's take our next caller. We got Macho. What's up, Macho? Where are you calling in from, gamer?
Hey, how y'all doing? Calling in from
Hey, what's up?
Calling in from where?
From Chicago.
Oh,
Chicago.
Yep. So thank you guys so much for having me on. So I kind of have a general fighting game question. I feel requires kind of a little bit of context.
Are you the Zato, Macho?
Yeah.
Oh my god! Wow, good to talk to you, dude.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
For context here, Macho got 5th place this year. 5th, right?
Yes.
At Evo, in Guilty Gear Strive.
Oh, let's go!
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my question is. Thank you. That's kind of where my question is stemming from. I've been following Melee since like 2012. Love the game, but I've always mostly competed in traditional fighting games, and with the most current one being Strive, like you mentioned. And my question is that, like, at the top level, how do you account for your variance in everyday gameplay, such as like playing your A game versus playing your B game, and kind of like follow-ups to that, like say you're playing in tournament and you recognize you're not playing your A game, like can you get to there if at all possible? And when you train, should you train to play your A game more often, or should you train to improve your B and your C game, and etc.? And the reason I ask this is because personally, right now the top level competition in Strive, it's pretty evenly matched, and it can be frustrating whether in tournament or even just in practice. Sometimes it feels like just variance and how I'm feeling on any given day can heavily dictate the way a set goes. So, and I'd love to pick, we have several top players, goated players in one of the hardest fighting games of all time. So I'd love to pick your guys' brain on, what you guys think about this.
It's really appropriate that you're asking this on the day we get Armada in, because I think Armada, I remember talking with you at one point, Adam, and I think I said to you, like, man, do you just not have, I was like, because it was almost, the meme was like, Armada never plays bad, right? And you were saying, I do play bad, I forget exactly what you said to me, but it was something along the lines of like, I do play there. I definitely have off days, but I work hard to make sure, like, you guys don't see it, kind of thing. I forget how you worded it.
This was like at that DreamHack, I think.
At that DreamHack, yeah.
And I think I said something along the lines like, I play bad, I'm just better at hiding it, or like my B game is like better than a lot of other people's, something along these lines. I don't remember exactly, but I remember the situation and the context, sort of.
Yes.
But I think for me on this question, I would say that at least in the sense of Melee, I feel like you almost never have people actually playing their A game because the game is so hard. I think most of the time you have people playing like maybe a strong B game, sometimes even lower, right? For me, and I know this will sound like a bit of a John, and maybe it is. But for me at tournaments, I often had issues with sleeping at hotels. I still can't literally do that. So for me, a lot of my practice, I was literally trying to practice in suboptimal conditions because that's often how it did happen in tournaments. And even for like, your every attendee at tournaments, I don't think it's possible to like play your A game every time or even remotely close to every time. At least in Melee, I think having a strong B game is 10 times more important than having the best A game. Because the thing is, the best A game, that's like a very, like maybe in 100 days, you have one day where you play 10 out of 10 or close to 10 out of 10. And maybe like 80, 90 days, you will play like, I don't know, an 8.5 out of 10. And that's technically the skill that's asked, which is why it's very silly with like, oh, like highest peaks and stuff like that. Because partially it's incredibly hard to measure if two people are playing at their peak simultaneously or not. But that's not really what we are asking at tournaments. We're asking who is playing the best during this specific tournament. And if you have the best players, you're not even asking over the course of the whole tournament. You're often asking who is playing the best during this 3 hour slot. So I think having a strong B game is much more important. And I do think practice, even when you're tired, frustrated, I think in some ways it's worse because if you only do that, it's probably harder to pick up on new stuff and learn new things. But I think it's good in order to like learn to play even when you're not feeling your best and doing the things you already do know. Uh, so I often hear people say like don't play if you're like tired or feeling a bit bad. To me, I did not agree with that mindset because if you're in a tournament and you get to that point, even though you probably can use some methods to help, maybe like mental training, for example. Uh, and wait, what's the word? Meditate. You can use these type of methods to maybe like get closer back to like a stronger game, but I don't think it's like an on and off switch. Like, all right, I'm playing bad, I press a button, and now I'm playing good again. You just have to accept the fact that you will often end up in scenarios where the conditions are not optimal. So I think you got to be able to like prepare for that, and I think the best way to do that is playing in suboptimal conditions at least sometimes.
And I will say, just to follow up on that, I mean, Armada was an incredibly consistent player with a very high floor. So even for that last year he played, I mean, I tell my chat sometimes this Armada that even though it was pretty clear to me that you were having a miserable time, I didn't know why at the time, but I was like, it's pretty clear, but you were still just beating pretty much everyone. It just showed, the consistency, and I really want people to think about that as they listen to what you're saying here. That being said, I don't really have the same answer.
I love that. I
Really?
love that because we're humans. So I think what's best for me might not be the best for you. So I would love to hear your response here.
Yeah, and this I could give you a better tailored answer, Macho, if I, was working with you specifically and everything, but I can tell you that when I've talked to Kadoran a lot about this sort of topic, and the topic of B game I think comes up a lot. And I really impress on a lot of people because a lot of people have the same sort of question, what do I do if I'm not playing well? And I'll tell them a lot of like, make sure you simplify your game plan even more. Make sure that you try to get higher reward stuff that are simpler reads that don't require reaction as much, because the more that you have to try and react, the harder that's going to be, and the more you're going to tax yourself if you're trying to play an A game when you're not there and you're not able to do it. So that's what I'll encourage as a general thing. But I often get concerned that people will get kind of complacent if they hear that, and I do see that a little bit. Now, of course, not with Armada, clearly, but some people can take that and they can say, well, okay, so I'm not going to be able to play well, so I'm going to kind of accept that this is a struggle. And I really do want to encourage people to shoot for more. And I don't mean being perfect, because that's not really what I'm saying either. But I think there are so many things that we can optimize in and out of the game, especially to improve ourselves. I think there's so much strain, especially as you become, you're succeeding at a high level, Macho. So I can say this is pretty obvious that there's going to be more pressure from expectations of people or sponsors or whatever. And this is, and then of yourself, right? That's going to put more on you. And so the more you can be at peace despite this, the more that, and the better you get, the more internal things, emotions and everything comes up, the more you can interact with that, the more you can see that all of this stuff is kind of connected. We did, and Armada did mention meditation. I think that's going to be another thing that's going to help you with this. And it's also going to be something that's going to keep your game at a more consistent level if you find a practice that's good for you. So the more you help the whole human, that's not just a player, I think the better off you're going to be, the better off it'll raise your B game, because your B game won't be as low. But I think working on your A game does raise your B game kind of by proxy, because you're just learning more and understanding more. So I encourage people to go for it, especially if they're in a position like yours, and then be prepared if there's an issue, and certainly do some training in the way Armada's talked about, so your body and mind and everything understands and doesn't freak out and make the situation worse if there is an issue. But shoot for success. Visualize yourself when you are powerful and you're playing and you're really enjoying it, and live your life in a way that's going to get you there. And there are so many facets to that and so many things. I'm not going to attempt to go over all of it. I think it'd be more complicated, but I do think it is possible. I have felt it at times myself, even in tournament. And even if you prepare incredibly well, if you prepare so well and you do all this stuff, that even if you do have an issue, you can still be in a really good spot. And I've had those spots a few times too. And so I can tell you that shooting for it and going for it, having the high standard is absolutely worth it. So it is going to be a bit of a different answer, but I think there is some overlap too that I think is very valuable.
It's funny thinking about how existing top players, like I'm thinking a lot about Amsa, because Amsa's another person I've talked with this exact topic about. And it's funny because when I watch Amsa's gameplay, I definitely feel like he's doing, or he holds himself to that standard, I think, that you're talking about, PP. But it's funny because I know that the way he practiced not even practices, is he intentionally practices very early in the morning when he wakes up. When he was a working professional, he would wake up at 6:30 or 6, and he would practice first thing as soon as he woke up, because his thought process was, I'm going to be really tired, or I might be jet lagged. So I want to train myself to reach my tech skill peak or what have you as quickly as possible. And I want to do it early in the morning, because that is going to emulate the tournament environment. Yeah. And so it's funny because I feel like with Amsa, I feel like there was there was a bit of both, where I think he was, from a practicality perspective, I think he was, from a practice perspective, I think he was doing a lot of things Armada said, where he was preparing himself to have to play in conditions that might not, be the best for a lot of people. But at the same time, I do feel like when I watch his gameplay, I never feel like I feel like he's always going for the thing that, that he should be doing.
He's not compromising.
He's not compromising. Yeah. Yeah, and he will go for very difficult execution stuff. I guess you just have to prepare, like, to me in the middle. I guess you just have to be prepared to. You have to work hard if you want to hold yourself to that standard in tournament.
Yeah, I think it's cool as well, because like you see like all these people, like all these like if you look at players, how they improved, for example, like how they got good in the first place, it's not like you see some similarities, some overlaps, right? But a lot of players, they have also like their own little things that's sticking out, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, I wouldn't even encourage like only listen to what I said, or only listen to like what PPMD or Toph said. I mean, I think like taking like all of these things into account and see what sticks and fits best for you is very, very important. Because I mean, imagine like in school, for example, how people learn. I've met so many people, they learn better one way and someone else a different way, right? And some people, like, they learn in ways where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be trash at this if I keep doing it this way. This is just not suited for me. And that doesn't mean that their method is necessarily better or worse, but it might be worse for me. So I always try to tell that to people when they're asking me about like practice methods, that some stuff I'm doing, it's more suited for me, and that's not necessarily the case for you, right? So yeah, I think having different viewpoints and test them all out, that's probably the best.
Trial and error, beautiful system.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I've actually been implementing some of the things that you guys are talking about. I actually go out of my way to practice whenever I feel tired. I force myself to practice and play sets whenever my hands are cold. I go out of my way to play sets. I even blare stadium noises in my headphones, because that's what it's gonna sound like when you play on stage. So I totally agree with what you guys are saying. It's good to know that the viewpoints are similar. So thank you guys so much for your answers.
That's
You're
pretty
very
cool.
welcome.
I
I
actually want to add one more thing that actually crossed my mind, if that's fine. So I mean, I think two more things that is actually maybe three things super important for consistency. So I mean, at least from a Smash point of view, one of my main tools that I felt like was very important for consistency, like if I hit you and you die, even if my neutral is a little bit worse, I will still have that, threat, right? Like even if I'm playing a bit worse, every player will be scared because if I touch you once, you die. So that alone will help so much with consistency. And that's why I personally was practicing so much against like computers and stuff as well, to make sure that even on my worst, I can still super consistently get this. And I think everyday practice was very important in that. Like skipping days, that was like the deadly sin. Do not skip days. That was the way it worked for me. That might be like overworking for some other people, so it would work worse. And then like preparing for opponents as well can clearly give you the edge of winning a set. I know PPMD was very good at that as well, like analyzing opponents and knowing things in advance. I mean, I was doing the same too. So like if me and PPMD were playing, we both like knew these little things, these little tricks that could give an edge, that could impact the whole set. I think one good example, and I'm pretty sure you did study this, or at least I think you did, PPMD. But I think one good example would be from Evo 2013 when we played. And you were shooting me with a laser from the side platform, and I was falling down with an immediate nair, and I get 0 to death in the first 5-10 seconds. As soon as I got hit by that, I was like, I felt in that moment that that's probably something I do too much. He has seen it, and he literally got a full stock, and he won that set.
Yeah, the little things can really add up. They can become big things, and people I think are so just you've got such a routine. Everyone is habitual in a certain way, so getting something like that, forcing people to make more and more of those adjustments, on top of already just having a rock solid game plan by itself, just really powerful.
Awesome. That pretty much sums it up. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on, Macho.
No, of course.
Best of luck at your next tournament. And if you have any shout outs, the floor is yours.
Sure, yeah. Shout outs Chicago FGC. Hoping to make waves in Guilty Gear soon, as well as other games. Shout outs Movement, team I play for. If you want to check them out, MidwestMovementApparel.com. And shout outs you guys for having me. Been watching you guys for a long time now. Love all your work.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you guys.
Appreciate that. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you.
I think that's really funny that he said he blares stadium noises in his headset, especially considering I don't think there have been really offline tournaments yet. It's been mostly online, as far as I know. So that's good preparedness for offline tournaments. Yeah, you gotta. That's man. I can only imagine you put a loop of like a crowd chatting, like Mango. And you practice like listening to the crowd chatting for Mango or something. Okay, I'm gonna fuck him up. Really, that's the method acting. All right, well, I think we have at least one more caller today. And it is Chape. What is up, dude? And where are you calling in from?
Oh, I'm calling from Santiago, Chile.
Santiago, Chile. What's up?
What's your question for us today?
I've seen a lot of your gameplay lately, Chape.
Yeah,
But
I
I think
saw
this is
you
the first
watching
time
that
I've talked to you.
tournament. Yeah, first time.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Thank you, thank you.
Mm.
So my question is, it's more like pointed to Armada, but I think PP can relate to this too. So the
Mhm.
question is like, before you started traveling to tournaments like outside of region or Europe in case of Armada, and you were dominating the local scene, and you didn't have like access to top player practice, how do you defy the odds against that? Like, what methods did you do to keep up with the rest of the people that are actually like, in America competing with like great players and top talent? And most importantly, which is what I'm struggling with right now, how do you keep yourself motivated through all that?
Yeah, and
So
for context here, Chape, you are in Smash World. You qualified, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
South
got
America. So
invited,
one.
but yeah.
High
Okay.
profile guest today.
Yeah. All the top players coming in to pick Armada's brain.
Makes
Of
sense.
course.
all right. Well, for me, I think so. Very early on in Smash, I was super motivated. I was one of these kids that went to my first tournament, thought I was, the coolest, the best kid on my block, that type of thing. Got my reality, or what I thought was my reality, crushed in my first tournament. And I was very motivated from that point to actually like get good and improve at the game. So from a very early point in time, I was applying a little bit that we went over on the question earlier of daily practice. That I still think is very important. For the most part, I have tried to apply that to Mario 64 as well in order to stay consistent. And always trying to work harder. That's part of my mindset. Like, almost like brutally go in with the hours. I think, especially when you're from less good regions, I think it's more good. I also try to apply more of like, how do you say, like the more analytical side, because I didn't have access to all these like amazing players, right? I could get really good cheek practice, for example, but a lot of other characters, it was like decent players and sometimes even like not that good players. So I had to like look at these players from the US, like how are they playing, how are they playing as other Peach players, even if they might not be like as good as me. Like, how is PPMD playing against top Peach players? How is Mewtwo King playing against them? So I think stuff like that also helped me a lot as well. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a deep question. It could go like way further, but I guess my mindset was like playing a lot and playing daily. And in terms of motivation, it was like pretty much always just looking at the next tournament and try to win it pretty much. And then as I went on to be more successful, it was trying to like set records was a way for me to stay motivated. Like, oh, no one has three-peated a super major. All right, cool, let's do that. Oh, no one has four-peated. I will try to do that. So I was trying to like set up goals that was like, oh, no one has done this before, so I'll try to be the first one to do it. So I think in terms of motivation, that was like something I tried to do to like keep the spark or fire alive for longer, but eventually that didn't work out. But it did for a long time. Did it for a long time.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, at least for me, like, for instance, I haven't lost like a set since July or something like that. And I've started like trying to put like stuff like challenges with myself, and I feel like that's been a bit like more motivating sort of sense, but I don't feel like I'm like doing productive stuff. For instance, like I'm grinding Punish game every day, but like I'm not gonna get like good like neutral or good situations set up with like good players that play mix-ups. Like I can play like Morse code like once every like 2 weeks, for example, and I would just like lab some stuff for Samus, and I just get like destroyed for it because like I don't get Samus practice here, and I don't get like much experience out of it, you know.
Yeah,
And
I feel what you mean. I think one important thing here, and I mean, maybe it's a little bit harder to apply um, before a certain point. But one thing I tried to do was that even if I played against players that was like way worse than my skill level, I always tried to treat them as they were top players. I was never trying to get into the mindset of like, oh, I can do whatever I want and I will win anyway. Like, if I was losing any type of scenarios, it was like, what could I have done better? It doesn't matter if it's like someone that like F3 stock consistently. I was trying to treat this player as, you know, like my biggest enemy pretty much. Because I know some players I've heard about, they are like, oh, I'm getting into this bad habit because people are not punishing me enough. So even sometimes if I did win neutral exchanges, it was like, would this actually have worked against a good player? So I think like in a way I was trying to play almost extra consciously against worse people to make sure that the things I'm doing actually make sense and is actually good, and hopefully also like still have the answers for like, even if what I did is a good option, it still is almost never like, oh, it can't be punished or beaten by anything, right? So I think having like keeping that in mind, like even if this is a good option, what could my opponent have done, and how would the situation have played out from that point if that's what they went for? I mean, that's pretty deep, but yeah, that's pretty like that was still like an important aspect for me, treating worse players still as they were the best, essentially.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna start like trying that out, I guess. It's like I need to like start experimenting, getting that mentality that you were saying, Armada. But it's kind of hard, but I'll definitely try it out and give it a shot.
I think it should. I hope it works out. I hope it works out.
Hopefully.
I can
Actually,
follow up if you want, but if you feel good about that, then I mean, you
no,
can
go
get
ahead. Any perspective helps out like a ton. So
yeah. So
I
I
want
mean,
to
I
get a
can.
lot of like let's hearings from most people that like have like similar situations to me or like have gotten like some sort of experience close to this.
Yeah, I mean, I had that for quite a while when I was coming up. Even if I was the best player in my state, there was still a lot of people above me, and I didn't travel out of state a lot, so I still had to do what I could with the people around me. And I think one of the most important things to me was if you can't get improvement from playing people, you optimized everything else as hard as you could. So that's part of why I like
Yeah.
analysis, because I didn't have a choice. I had to do it. And part of the reason I have the framework to discuss with people is because I had Smash boards, but I didn't have people. But people were on Smash boards, so that was what I used too. And and so every little thing I could take, I took. And so again, you have to the more you try to think like a person that is in SoCal or Florida or wherever that has a lot of players that you can just practice with on 20 ping or whatever, the more you try to think like that, the more frustrated you're going to be. You have to get hungry and you have to say, what can I do that no one's doing, and how can I make that work for me? And one of the things that was really helpful for me to make it a little bit different than what Armada was saying is when you're playing someone, if they'll listen, you can tell them, "Hey, I'm punishing you for doing this all the time. This is something you can do to change it." You can even practice with them if you want, or you can just do a lot of experimental play when playing with someone. And I don't mean like you're talking about challenges, but you can be saying, "Okay, well, I saw Foxes doing this. I'm not sure why. I'm going to mess around with this tool, or I'm going to try and see how fast I can be and not necessarily and like while still paying attention, or try to do these movements that I'm not used to doing. How well can I execute in a match situation?" You can lose stocks on purpose in tournament so that you are at a deficit, and you might feel pressure and like, oh, I haven't lost since July, so maybe like people will think of something about me if I lose. And so then there's a pressure situation. There are all kinds of things you could do, whether it's in friendlies or whatever, to give yourself an advantage. But the main thing is, if I always told myself, is if I am getting hit, if I'm not JV5ing you every game, there's something to learn. And and the main thing for motivation for me was I just love the game so much that until something else got it bigger than my love for the game, that's always what pushed me forward. And I think that was true for everyone that really came up in a big way, Armada or whoever. I think the love for the game, I mean, everyone talked about it. I think that a lot of people still do, is that if you, long as you're loving it and that's bigger than anything else that's in your way, you're going to keep going. And so something that might be useful is thinking about why you were so enamored with the game when you started. What was it about all the possibility? Try to reconnect with the idea of all that stuff that's there, and then you can start going back into that idea of experimentation, which goes back into all the stuff I was talking about. So I do think there is a big relationship there, and I think the more you can tap into that, the better off you're going to be.
That's really deep. Actually, like makes a lot of sense. Like
Cool.
I need to like do this information for a bit and like have like good judgment, but it's like really useful.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm always part of this is formed by my own experience, but part of this is from watching a lot of other people, and so I'm glad I can pass it on. I'm glad I can help, and good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the show and for instance of me coming to this. I watch this like every week, so
Cool,
it's kind of
cool.
surreal for me being here. I'm
Glad
talking to
to
like
have you on.
two of my favorite players and
Heck
one of
yeah.
my favorite commenters, of course.
Well, no, I know you were talking about Toph and Armada as your favorite players. Love those guys.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, you got any shout outs for us on your way out today, Chape?
Yeah, of course. Shout out to Golden Guardians first of all. Then I want to shout out like melee stats. They are really good at making compilations from like shouting out like really obscure regions, and they're always like here around the community, like doing great videos and how highlighting players from like different regions that don't usually get the spotlight and covering like people that are on come up. So shout out to them.
Yeah, they're awesome. Finally got to
Yeah.
meet this weekend. It's good hanging out
Weeks
with them.
go. He's a goat. Shout out to you guys. I love watching the stream. Those like really decent hours for me, so I usually like watch this while I'm studying. I usually watch
Nice.
PP when I get home and Armada.
Oh, you study at DJ hours. You're like me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's gotta be. That's how it's gotta be.
I'm a big lurker on both UPP and Armada stream. I usually come to Armada stream watching the runs. Also, congrats on the PB. So
Thank you.
Pretty cool.
Appreciate it.
And shout out to the chilling community for being like so good.
Cool deal. All right. Well, we'll see you around, Chape.
Well, see you guys around. See ya.
Peace out, Chape.
Peace out.
All right. A lot of good questions we got today. But I think
Yeah.
that is going to be all for our callers. Toph, I don't know if you wanted to ask Armada one more thing before we throw it to his community voice. I have one or two things I can ask. But I don't know how you're feeling.
Take it away, because I actually already asked Armada the stuff that I wanted to ask him. So
All right, let's go, Toph, man. He's on the ball today. Okay, well, this was something that kind of came to me while we were talking. I actually had different stuff written down, but it kind of got covered with our old community voice. So I had something else that kind of came up as everyone was talking, and it really struck me. We talked to Cody. We had him on a little while ago, and he talked about how when he was making that summit run that decided whether he was going to play or leave, he was like, man, Armada basically gave me a cheat sheet on every single player, and I just did what he said, and I was able to beat everyone. And and I thought, oh, well, okay, that's interesting. And I was like, maybe that's like a one-off thing, right? But then I watched the Zain documentary the other day when he beat Hbox and Shine. He's like, man, Armada gave me these tips, and then I was able to beat Hbox, and I was like, okay, maybe there's more going on here. Maybe this is not a one-off thing. And I kind of, I was thinking, I guess the way I can ask this question is, it seems like you are still kind of involved in almost shaping the meta in a way by interacting with the other players. And I kind of wanted to ask, do you get a lot of satisfaction from that? Are there some players you enjoy working with more than others? I mean, do you go out of your way to reach out to them, or do they reach out to you? I mean, what's your experience with that been like?
Basically 95 to 99% of that is the fact that the two players, like besides Android, of course, way back, besides that, it's pretty much only been Cody and Mutiking when he was playing as well, because I would say that's my two closest friends from the American scene.
Okay.
And I mean, Cody is a really good player. He's a great friend of mine, and I like to see him succeed. So, I mean, I take satisfaction seeing a friend perform, step by step closer to what he's actually capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as he wants my help, I'm more than willing to try to help him through the process. Basically, I was trying to treat it similar to how I did it actually the same way, more or less, I would say, as when I was competing myself, just going over players. So basically for myself and now for Cody, going over his last sets or set against whatever opponent he is coming up, trying to find his weak spots, things that they are abusing against him, what he should be doing instead. So it's often like, this is where you lose a lot of neutral exchanges, and this is what you could be doing instead. Sometimes it's like raw answers that this is probably the best. Sometimes it's ideas that could be working that I think could be worth testing out, or I test out myself for him. and then also trying to find weaknesses of the opponents, like, you know, how do they act under pressure? Like if they're pressured, they tend to have these type of habits. They're trying to find their openings these ways. They like these combo routes. So it's often like trying to dissect the player in like both their like weaknesses, so like the spots you want to attack and your spots you need to make sure that don't give them these easy openings that they're abusing. Sometimes they may not even thinking too much about it, but you know it's there, right? Like if I played against Android like today, even without thinking about it, I will have certain things that I will punish him for, and vice versa, just because we have played a lot, right? And even though maybe Cody doesn't play as much against any of these players, he's still like on a very frequent basis play against these players in tournament, right? So you will have these type of like, oh, like this person recovers this way or they attack this way. Like some of this is like, you know, kind of simplifies, but some of it is also like very true, right? So I think yeah, I'm pretty much just trying to give him advice on, you know, all these areas. And as I said, as long as he finds it helpful, I will try my best to be a good friend and help him out.
Okay, so in the case of Zain, you just really wanted Hungrybox to lose.
Yeah, in Hbox's cases, especially back then. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I hated Puff.
Oh,
That's that's
funny.
true. And yeah, I
Oh,
hate
that's
Puff.
funny.
I hate Puff. And in Saint's case as well, I think one thing that was very cool with Saint in particular, it was from Summit 5. It was from Summit 5. Many times, even like sometimes good players, they are, you know, asking for advice, right? I think one thing that was very cool with Saint at that particular event, that was like his, maybe not, actually in one way, I think breakout performance. It's
Yeah.
true. Like he had beaten Plup and Leffen in the past, right? And he was a good player, but that summit was like uh he was beating multiple players, getting top 3, which was the highest placement that an invite had gotten at Melee summits. At least back then. I think it still holds true.
I think it still does.
Yeah.
But I remember playing Insane, and I actually gave him quite a few advice on how to deal with Peach as well. And some of them he actually started to like use against me in the tournament.
Oh no.
As well. But the thing
Oh,
is,
no.
the cool thing is that things I told him, it was almost like he was immediately trying to like implement it, right? It was not like, oh, this is on my list to do later. That may eventually be never. It was almost like he was like instantly trying to like, you know, trial and error and try to get it to work. So that was like an additional point. Like, yes, HBox, like Puff, yeah, I mean, it's no secret to anyone. Like, I just don't find it enjoyable. And again, it has nothing to do with Hungrybox. We are on good terms. We have always been on good terms, at least from my point of view. And I think that's the same for him. But just like he probably hated my Young Link a lot, and later on my Fox, I didn't like his Puff. So yeah, I did want other people to win in that sense. That is true. But with that said, no harassment towards HBox. As I said, more positive energy.
Yeah, we do love positive energy here.
It's funny with Zain, I do think that's one of his strong points, and you notice it to this day, and it's not even from top players. Like he will immediately implement or try to implement or at least try to mess around with. You could be anyone, and if you tell him something, you know, he will take it to heart no matter who you are. I've always thought that was really cool about him. There's some other top players that are a little bit more, I guess, selective, but Zain is very, and he's about this. He's like, you know, I'll take advice from anyone. And I you know, he's very I don't know, non-elitist, I guess. Like maybe you have a bad idea, but he'll at least try it or think about it or give, you know, and I think that's pretty cool. And he's always been this way. He's always been this way. And he will try things immediately. I don't know that the other top players are like this. I think some of them, you know, like with Hungrybox, I think the community at large has been telling him to reaction tech chase rest for a long time now, you know, and he's starting to implement it sometimes. But yeah, with Zain, you know, you see it immediately. He's like, yeah, okay, this looks good, sounds good. Let me at least try it.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, I think that's one of many things that makes him into a fantastic player and competitor. Absolutely. So, yeah. And I mean, saying just as like some of the other players like that I've tried to help in the past, mainly Cody and also Mutaking, like it's fun to see that they find it helpful, right? I mean, I always say that, it's still their work. They're just getting, like some extra tools to work with, but it's still up to the player to make usage of those tools, right? So, I mean, I could send literally the same type of things to like most people, and they wouldn't even try or wouldn't be able to the same degree use it to their advantage, right? So, I mean, it's still up to them to actually make usage of it. So, yeah, it's nice to see. It's nice to see when it happens.
Yeah,
Totally.
can't see you
Gratifying.
sending a checklist to Mango and him going, yeah, this looks good. For some reason, I just can't seem to wrap my head around that one.
Mango, I think he's usually later to jump on board a technique, right? Like shield dropping, ledge dashing, and he kind of picks it up. But although it is funny because with Mango, I do think he brings a lot of innovation, but it's usually from inward. And he will adopt techniques, but I feel like it usually takes him a while to start doing like the commonly like the techniques that everybody's talking about. But then once he starts doing it, then it's called the mango. So.
Right. Yes, we are all quite familiar intimately with that process and experience. We don't need you to comment on that one, Armada, but what I would like for you to comment on is our community voice. That's right. I didn't forget. Look at me go, doing the bare minimum here. What would you like to have the YouTube comments respond to? What is your question for the people? And we'll pick that up when Toph and I and whoever else, if there is anyone else here next week. But what's a question that you'd really like people to answer that they would really love to hear from Armada? What is something that only you could ask them?
Wait. So wait, I was supposed to ask a question and they respond to it in the YouTube comments, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
That's correct. So what we had last time was about how do you feel about Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl? How do you feel about the longevity of the game? We started with that early on here. So now you can have a question about whatever, probably not the GOAT discussion. I would assume you could ask that and just cause a war, but you could also ask a question again. Like I
love
said,
war.
Well, like I told you before we started, I did one about degenerate. What's your favorite degenerate Smash tweet? So it doesn't have to be serious. It can be fun. It's whatever you want to do. It could be who's your favorite Mario 64 runner. It's really up to you, man. But this is your time to ask.
I mean, I think I have one question that could be interesting that hopefully will give a lot of different answers.
Okay.
Smashers aside, which esport athlete, professional, would you love to see pick up melee? Like you can pick one, and also in this like one you think actually would do really like good in the game and why. So like an esport athlete outside of Smash that you would love to see pick up melee that you think would do well and why. I mean, maybe that's a little bit too much in it, but like I think you guys sort of like see where I'm going.
I get it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Of
sure.
course.
I mean, there is more and more melee crossover with other games, and there are some people that try it sometimes. I think especially after Rollback came out, I think there were a lot of people that were getting kind of interested in it. So the potential's there. And yeah, I mean, maybe it'd be kind of cool, right? People are talking about it here. Maybe someone gets tagged in our response to it or whatever, right? Like maybe it even starts something. So I think it's a cool question, and I'm not as familiar with a lot of other esports scenes, so maybe I'd learn something about other esports scenes too. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, this is always a fun topic. Every time I've gotten an opportunity to talk to like FGC members, for example, I always used to ask them at Evo or whatever. I would ask them like, what character, do you watch Melee? Like, what character would you play in Melee? I always think it's like a fun topic of discussion. So definitely curious to see what the people out there are thinking on this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about all for us. We've had a bit of a long one today, but certainly not a bad one. I think Armada, legendary guest. Legendary
Glad we had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, legendary episode here in the books. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. It was a great time, and I hope all the viewers had a good time. And, everyone involved in this show in any capacity, thank you so much. It was a good time. My pleasure.
Awesome.
Our pleasure. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, we're going to let Armada go now. It is very late in Sweden, in case anyone was wondering.
It's true.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. This is Radio Melee, signing out.